good.
Yeah. So you're not from California, are you?
No. I'm from Australia, but I just like I have a bit more of a hub kind of in San Diego, but then I've got RVCA and stuff up in Orange County, and then I, like an idiot, decided to go to LA to like meet up with one of my friends to train as well, and now I'm on my way back down, and it's obviously gonna take a while. Typical LA job. Yeah, crazy, but
yeah, my friend, the other guy, his name's Brendan. He's from California. He played college baseball out there, so I'm sure the traffic is mutual between you guys right now.
yeah, I bet it's like very similar. It's absolutely horrible, and I'm like, how does anyone live here?
Yeah, I feel the same way. If I lived like downtown LA, I probably wouldn't have a car. There's no way.
Yeah, at all.
So,
like, yeah.
What was I about to ask? When is your do you have any fights coming up scheduled or?
Yeah, next Saturday.
Okay.
I'm on the Bellator Hawaii card. So.
That's right. I think I saw you post that. Are you excited?
Yeah, definitely excited. Just can't wait to kind of get in there and get back into it. It's been like I haven't fought since May, so it's gonna be great.
Was your last fight, was that with Leah McCourt?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
We were just watching that earlier. I saw it. And I was like, it was crazy. It was crazy. Like you performed so well, and it just kind of shows what can happen.
Anything. It's one of those sports. Hey, like literally, it just kind of chews you up and spits you out a little bit sometimes. But it's just like anything can happen, and I was brutally reminded of that, I guess, last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, like because the other guy, Brendan, I don't know if his connection is good or not. He was like, you got to watch this, and I was like, okay. So I watched it, and I was like, wow. I was like, I mean, I don't know. How does that affect you mentally when you go through something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard pill to swallow. It was sort of like, man, I did all the right things. I obviously worked really hard on a lot of like areas in my game, and I improved, and I made weight, and my cardio was great, and I feel like those things were lacking on her side, and for her to win felt undeserving to an extent. And I think that in itself was the hardest thing. It was sort of like, at least I could take away a lot of positives. I could take away, my professionalism and my ability to get better and those kind of things. But it was like, I was a little bit salty. Like, I feel like some losses, you're just disappointed. Obviously, you're like, you take the loss pretty hard. You're disappointed in your performance or whatever it was, or the mistakes that you made. This one, I was a little bit more sour than anything. And so I guess it was a different mix of emotions. And I just sort of had to process it and just trust in the process. Like, I just had to really kind of come back to the fact that, like, for whatever reason it happened because it happened. Like, it was such a I guess, niche thing to happen in a sense. So I was like, clearly it happened for a reason. I don't know what that is, but I've had a lot of peaks and valleys in my life, in itself, in my personal life and my career. So I was just kind of like, just trust in the process. You'll always pop out the other end. Just trust and back yourself that, there was a reason for this. And I don't know, like anything can happen. And I mean, you never know, but I do think that win sort of pushed Leah towards the title, and then obviously towards harder fights like Sinead, and then she lost. So, things like are going to happen how they're going to happen. It doesn't mean one loss, especially in MMA, doesn't mean that you're going to be set back for years. So I just sort of had to, process it a little bit and run it through. But I feel like I'm much better for it now.
No, absolutely. No, I think that's I think another fighter said, just a couple of weeks ago was, like it's the sport has the highest of the highs and the lowest of lows. So, I mean, I think that makes got to make you a stronger person outside of the sport too. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal what y'all go through. I mean, like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I think it reflects on life too. Like, life is peaks and valleys. This crazy sport is peaks and valleys. If you can handle like the wins and the highs and lows and losses and stuff in MMA, then you can kind of just handle life. Like life seems a little bit less intimidating. It's sort of just like, okay, this is just how it is.
Right. So how long have you been in Bellator?
I got signed, I think, about 4 years ago. So this next fight will be my 7th one with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your amateur career like?
I didn't really get to have a lot of amateurs, unfortunately, because the Australian scene is ever growing, and back then it was definitely a little bit shallow. I only had about 3, I think, amateur fights. And then I got signed quite early to Bellator. I think I was maybe like 2 and 2, or yeah, I was maybe like 4 or 5 fights in. It was very early, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely, like, when I started getting really big into MMA, I didn't realize, like, the sport for women is really, it's so new. It's so new. Like, I didn't realize that when I'm having a brain fart right now. What is her name?
Ronda
Rousey. Yeah, when Rousey got so big, that was 2013. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, crazy. Hey, and it was like when I started, women weren't even in the UFC like that. Like Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche fight wasn't to a few years after I started fighting. So it was sort of like there wasn't really like an avenue, and then for that reason there wasn't like a good popularity around the sport because people were like, we can't make a career out of this. So now it's definitely growing, which is great. But like, yeah, at the beginning it was a bit rough to try to find. Even now it's I'm lucky that I'm in a good promotion that has quite a lot of featherweights and quite a lot of options for me. But to find opponents like back in that early days was really hard.
Right.
I mean, you speak about finding opponents, but just like what, I guess with that lack of influence on that side, what got you into the sport, would you say that?
I honestly think it was just my love for it. Like I started in karate, and then I transitioned over when I was about 15. And I was just doing it as a hobby, but I guess I graduated high school and I got into university, but I don't know, it wasn't exciting me what I got in for. I got in for communication. I just sort of chose it just based on, like, I guess that was the closest thing that I enjoyed, but I definitely wasn't super I guess passionate about it. So for that reason, I was like, hey, maybe I'll give this MMA thing a go. Obviously, you can train all you want, but you never know if you're going to be a good fighter. So I thought would at least see how I went in a first fight, and I went really well. And it just ignited something in me, and I think I was just like, man, this feels like home. This gets me up in the morning. If I can make a career out of this, that would be even better. And I guess I was raised with great kind of moral ethics that, like, you know, try to do something that you love for the rest of your life. And for that reason, I just chased this dream, and it turns out it kind of, somewhat so far worked out. I've got to do a lot of cool stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. So, and okay, in your opinion, what fighters that got you as a, like, what fighters did you kind of look up to that you were like, man, like, if I could have kind of model my career after them, you know, maybe that's the goal I should have.
Yeah, I mean, back in that kind of those beginning days, this was maybe like I had my first fight 9 years ago. So I guess like I was looking at like the Gina Carano's and that kind of thing, and I was looking at even Julie Kedzie and some of those like really original, like even Michelle Waterson and stuff like that. Invicta obviously was like more of the leading promotion back then. And I guess from my standpoint, I was looking at it kind of from a more personal aspect. I had come from karate, so the Michelle Watersons and the I guess just the less stereotypical kind of MMA fighters were the ones that I was looking at and being like, okay, cool, I can do this too, you know, like this is for everyone, and these girls are being really successful. And I mean, the Strikeforce days, that was such a cool time in like women's MMA. So yeah, I was looking towards them and hoping, I guess, along that was back when Dana was like, women are never going to be in the UFC. I was hoping that would change during the time, or another promotion would pop up. I actually never really looked at Bellator, I think, until maybe until like the flyweights really started getting quite active in Bellator, and that was really cool. But then once they got the featherweight division, and then once they started building it, that was amazing.
Right. No, that's awesome for sure. Do you so you've been in Bellator for a while. Do you see yourself fighting in another promotion, or do you think you'll be with Bellator for quite a while?
I mean, never say never. I would absolutely love to kind of dabble in other things for different opportunities, different exposures, different opponents, you know, different looks. But at the moment, Bellator's a great place for me. I've got, like I said, a lot of opportunities to fight a lot of great names. Our featherweight division is quite deep, and it's got some really cool people, like cool matchups, I guess. Things that excite me at the moment, I would stay there and hopefully just accomplish all that I want to accomplish. And once I've sort of, I guess, got the title and I guess defended it maybe once or twice, then yeah, look at what else I can do and what other things I can add to my legacy.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely I think something that, you know, is crazy, and we may see some of in the future, is I would love to see some of the cross promotion stuff, you know, because I mean, Kayla Harrison is obviously like an amazing fighter. She just re-signed with PFL. And, you know, I don't know how many fighters, you know, there are in her division, you know, like kind of like you said, there's always going to be something that excites you. That's kind of what keeps you going. What, I guess another question I had is like, so your fight that's coming up, like what do you think about this opponent? Do you like the matchup? I mean, just want to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm fighting Diana Silva. She's ranked number 10. I'm number 6. She's a Brazilian girl, and her last 2 fights have been against killers. So I'm really excited for this matchup. I've had a somewhat of a layoff, so it excites me to come back to something sort of I guess tough. Like she's coming off 2 losses, but 2 losses to like the basically number 1 and 2 ranked, even though Julia's not in our Bellator promotion anymore. But those 2 are like really high level, so for me, I know that she should be hungry to get a win back, get back in the win column, and I also know she's a bit of a gamer. So for me, that's exciting. That gets me up and gets me really motivated for this camp. And coming off like surgery and a bunch of other kind of setbacks over the last year, it's really exciting.
Right. There's a big Bellator card tomorrow, isn't there? There's
I think Saturday.
In AJ, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think? So you think AJ is gonna keep it, or?
I mean, that first performance was dominant. Like, he not only subbed him, but he rocked the guy. Like, and against someone like Pitbull, who has been absolutely like dominating in the division, I thought that was phenomenal. So I definitely back AJ. I mean, like we know, anything can happen, but yeah, I think AJ is going to take it again for the second time.
Right. You know, I mean, like you said, Pitbull he's been dominating for a long time. I mean, he's been around for, I mean, him and Michael Chandler both. I mean, I remember when Michael Chandler was back in Bellator, and I mean, some of the fights that I see that kind of pop up, I'm just like, wow. I mean, these people are legends, and I mean, I think it's fighting it's got to be a very unforgiving sport, you know. And I think everybody has a time, just like every sport. And I guess we're gonna see, because you never know. Some people defy age. So
exactly. But I mean, like, Chandler's success in the UFC really gives credibility to Pitbull and him knocking Chandler out. So I guess it's sort of like, and then that tears down to the credibility of AJ beating him. So AJ is the real deal, I think, and it'll be interesting to see who's gonna beat him.
Right. And it'll be really interesting to see because, you know, I see things pop up, and I mean, if he ends up going to the UFC, that's going to be outstanding. I mean, I think he's 145, isn't he? So him and Volkanovski might be something that's, I don't know. That's a big fight.
It's a big fight because, again, like after watching Volkanovski's performance over the weekend, you're also like, who's going to beat Volko? I mean, if you want to give him Max again, give him Max again. But, you know, that doesn't mean that he's going to win. Like, Max is going to win. It means, you know, he needs these kind of exciting matchups. And Max is the greatest matchup. I think Max is a phenomenal fighter too. But, man, Volko was on another level on the weekend. That was next level.
When I saw, I think it was Volk and Ortega. I mean, I had already respected Volkanovski. I thought he was great. But when I saw like his head turn purple and get out of that choke, I was just like, what just happened?
Insane. And then get into a triangle quite deep, and still nothing can stop the man. I like obviously got to back the boy because he's from Australia, but even more so, he's just a phenomenal fighter on his own accord.
He is a different breed. When I saw like because Ortega that was probably the performance of a lifetime, and then he came back and I think in the last round, and I was like, wow. I mean,
so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
it's motivational.
Yeah, for sure, like 100%. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with Bellator, but what is your opinion on the judges? I know the judges, like, there's a lot of like things that, could probably be changed. A lot of like, I think the judges lack experience in some situations. What is your opinion on that?
I mean, like, it's a hard one because for us, like, it depends where you are. So it depends what state you're in, and then therefore what commission's sort of in charge. So it's not necessarily like a promotional thing. I think it's sort of like where we're at. Like sometimes some of these states, and that's the same with the UFC. So they use some of the commissions, like judges that are local or whatever, and sometimes you really notice the difference. Like, or even like pre-COVID, like when we were traveling a little bit more for both promotions, I guess, like you would definitely see a biasness in different countries and stuff like that. So I do think there's just still like, I hate to say, like it's not necessarily like they're corrupt, but it's sort of, it's definitely like some sort of discrimination sometimes, and then it comes down to maybe just a lack of experience and some judges, like, I guess it's one of those sports, so it's interpretive. Like I feel like the scoring is interpretive. So maybe if we come up with a little bit more globally recognized way to interpret, like just because someone's controlling on the feet and then they get taken down for like 10 seconds, they secure the position, but it's like a 10-second ground control, but then they've gotten lit up on the feet. How, like, takedowns score quite high, but like how high can you score that kind of thing? And like that's where it gets a bit blurry, or like the wall work and stuff. If you're holding someone against the wall but you're not doing anything, and your multiple attempts at takedowns are unsuccessful, then like, and the other person that's on the cage is holding you up and defending the takedown and like maybe popping off some just like small dirty boxing style shots, like who do you say is more dominant? Like I don't know, like it's a hard one sometimes, and so therefore sometimes that really translates to the scoring, and it gets a bit iffy because then like the casual fan will be like, oh, they got robbed, and then some of the pros are like, no, I can kind of see it, and it depends what standpoint you're coming from.
Right. No, I mean 100%. I think it's crazy because I mean, I think the other guy's connection, I think he timed out, but he's been doing, like, we both train Muay Thai. He's a lot more experienced than me. And I mean, it's crazy. Like even the difference between the knowledge me and him has, and then somebody like you that's been doing it for years. I mean, I can just hear it when I hear it, sometimes like some fighters they'll annotate the fights as they're happening, and I'm just like, wow, like the level of knowledge is not the same. And I would never try to judge a fight. I mean, like, I'll do it like personally, like myself, but it's crazy. It's crazy to see that, like, I don't think it's as bad as boxing. I think boxing is a little bit more maybe corrupt, or I don't know, but I think the judges is a little worse there. But it's crazy to see that, like, the level of knowledge is not the same. And then you have people that have never fought MMA in their life, and they're judging these fights, and sometimes they're title fights.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of backseat drivers, and then I mean, like, it's the young, it is how fast it's growing, and it's the boxing that's been around forever. And then obviously it being young means it's ever evolving. Like there's always new things that are trending, or people are changing their strength and conditioning, or people are changing the way they cut weight and all these things. Like it kind of brings a different aspect. And I think if you're not keeping up with that, if you're not involved in it, like I guess the athletes at the front line and the high level promotions are, then it's probably hard to like pick and choose like what all these new things are, and then I guess evaluate it from like a judging standpoint and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's such a crazy little, I don't know, mixing community.
It really is, and it almost makes it like when you have people that have as much hype as Conor McGregor did coming up or Hamzat right now. I mean, it almost makes it to where if you don't, you shouldn't like you almost can't leave it to the judges, or it's hard. It is. I mean, I thought Hamzat and Gilbert Burns had a phenomenal fight. I couldn't pick a winner. I thought it was dead even. I would no way. That's just ultimate respect. I mean, it's insane to see that. And but like you said, I mean, sometimes the person's name, there's a little bit of bias there, and it's between the public, and it happens. It does. There needs to be a generalized kind of way to score.
Yeah, just I think a little bit more definitive for everyone, and they can, then it makes sense. If someone's making an argument, you can be like, yeah, well, I guess that's in the rule set kind of thing.
Right, right. So who you train in Australia or New Zealand?
Australia.
Australia. Okay, so who do you train with, like any other big time fighters or?
I mean, I've trained in a lot of different places in Australia, and the community is quite small, but I guess the training is a little bit spread out. But I'm lucky enough to have just moved back home to the Gold Coast. I used to live in Sydney, but after all the crazy restrictions and lockdowns and stuff, I ended up moving back to the Gold Coast. And so my last camp, I got to share with Tyson Pedro. I've trained with him in the past in Sydney. He's from Sydney as well. But he came down to CMBT Training Center, which is my main hub when I'm back on the Gold Coast, and it was fantastic just to share the camp together. I mean, obviously we're not training partners; the guys are light heavyweight, but it was cool to kind of have that motivation. We shared a similar schedule, and we had similar sessions and stuff. So that was really really cool. And obviously, I don't know if you know, but he's had a couple of surgeries on his knee and been out for a little while. So yeah, it was great to see him kind of build back and try to get back into it.
Right. No, absolutely. It seems like there's a bunch of fighters from the New Zealand, Australia area. I mean, I think Dan Hooker's from that area. I know you said Volkanovski. Casey O'Neill, I want to say, is from there, which
Yeah.
she's blowing my mind. She's really good. She's awesome. So
she was like one of my first ever, well, I was like, I guess one of her first ever training partners. So I sort of started just before her, and then she started at my gym when she was very, very young, like 14.
right.
I maybe even say 30. I've known her since she was at least 13 or 14. So yeah, she's kind of been around as long as I have, and yeah, we've done similar stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah, I got the pleasure to meet her when she fought in Houston against Roxy, and I mean, I was just impressed. I was overall impressed. I mean, I got to meet Ty. Ty's an awesome guy. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like a loss in MMA is I think Roxy's kind of proof that. I mean, because her record is all over the place, but she's lost a couple in a row, and she always came back. I mean, she's always came back, and if she didn't win, she put on a dominant performance and just couldn't quite get the W. Man, I don't know. It's inspiring, is what it is. It really is. What?
Yeah, one of those kind of veterans of the sport that her name brought a lot. Like, I mean, you knew that she had been in the Ultimate. You knew she'd been there since the Invicta days. You knew kind of, she'd fought the bigger names. So it was like still such a great win for Casey, I guess, and a bit of a passing of the torch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, she's a legend. Like, regardless, you're right. She's like a pioneer. I mean, she literally has been around since the beginning. So when you're not doing MMA,
Absolutely.
What do you do for fun?
Mainly at the beach. You'll catch me at the beach for sure. Bit of a water baby. I'm originally from New Zealand, but yeah, I grew up on the Gold Coast, so it kind of made a lot of sense to come over to San Diego and make a hub here because San Diego is very thin. So that's usually where you'll find me. I mean, I do a whole bunch of stuff. I guess I've been traveling for a long time. The last few years have been like involving a lot of travel. So that, like, yeah, I guess affected.
Oh wait, can you hear me? Oh, your connection came back. There it goes.
Well, that was a crap show.
Yeah, I'm waiting on her connection now.
I could tell hers was going on a little bit, but mine way went out.
Brandon, are you still there? Oh, we lost her. I'm gonna get her back. Hang on.
How was the conversation?
Dope.
I
Dope.
think.
Wait,
Am I back?
you're
Sorry.
back. Wait.
Yeah, my bad.
Oh wait, there it goes.
Back.
Where did he go? What am I doing to the screen?
I think everyone's here now.
I see.
Yeah.
This is weird.
That was
What?
weird because it basically canceled.
What is going on?
Cody, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. Now we're back.
Cool.
There it goes. Ah, there we go.
Seems like we all have some connection issues.
Yeah. At the same time.
You gotta love it. We're like in 2022 and we are still dealing with these problems.
And we all struggle.
Yeah, no, for like 100%.
Difficult.
My favorite one is when my phone has like 5G, like all the way across, but it won't load anything. And I'm just like, okay, like,
Oh, that's annoying. Oh man, I had a phone call yesterday and that was like setting up something basic, and it was just the worst. Like I had to use multiple devices, and I was like, technology is like a blessing and a curse.
right.
It's supposed to be smart.
It never works.
Yeah. It works how you want it to. Why would it do that?
Oh, 100%. Now that Brendan has some connection, I'll let him kind of ask what he wants to ask.
Yeah, being from New Zealand, I think I've seen some of the city kickboxing guys supporting you in your fights. Do you have a relationship with those guys? Have you trained with those guys over there? Or is that kind of just both being you guys the Kiwis?
I mean, we are like pretty good in Australia and New Zealand. We sort of all just support each other anyway. But at the same time, like because of I used to travel to Thailand a little bit. Obviously, I'm from New Zealand. Originally, I was born in New Zealand, but I was born in the South Island in Christchurch, whereas city kickboxing is up in Auckland. But I luckily like get to obviously travel home when I can. And I visited the gym before. Eugene's just a genuinely great person. Like he supports Australian, New Zealand MMA in general, and then on top of that, I bumped into the guys over in like Thailand and stuff like that. Back we also all used to sort of head over to Tiger Muay Thai, sometimes to just like outsource camps because it's very close for Australians to sort of go to Thailand or Bali or that kind of thing. So we all used to sort of use Tiger Muay Thai as a little hub, and I guess we'd all see each other there. And then I got to kind of pick the brains of like Brad Riddell and Selby and a couple of the other main guys, the head honchos, and then as well as that, Mark Hunt used to come visit the Gold Coast as well at a gym that I used to train at. So yeah, we all end up crossing paths, I guess, over the years and at like UFC at the major shows and stuff, at UFC shows in maybe Adelaide or Sydney or Melbourne or whatever. You'll all show out and then you'll all kind of get together, which is fantastic. I think that's one of the big things that I really love. As much as we don't have a massive scene in Australia and New Zealand, the guys that are successful and kind of the gyms and the coaches and that kind of thing, we all sort of kind of unconditionally band together or support each other, which is really cool because you kind of come over here and there's heaps of UFC and bellator fighters over in the US, but I guess they don't really know each other that well.
That's great to see, though. It is. And now I know the world's been crazy the last couple of years with pandemic, and I know it's definitely crazy for travel for you guys from New Zealand, Australia. Now, is that kind of why you've probably only had like one fight a year lately? Would you like to be more active, or is that kind of what you shoot for, 1 to 2 fights a year?
Yeah, it's definitely been because of COVID. Like I would like love to fight 3 times a year if I could, but I mean the 2020 obviously half of that was spent not knowing when we would even come back, and then Bellator came back towards the end of the year. I got to sneak one in November, and then the next year it was I was like they were trying to get me on obviously I fought in May last year, but like they were trying to get me on earlier, but it was just like they were having shows in my phone, and then it wasn't even just me, it was like my opponent be coming from one of my opponents was coming from Israel and she couldn't get her in, and someone else
Right.
was coming from somewhere else, and so it's like everyone was like really struggling to get visas and approvals or like let out of their own countries and all sorts of stuff. So it wasn't even just like me, although Australia and New Zealand was really strict, but it was everyone else as well. And then after that last fight, I did my hotel quarantine. I had 2 weeks of friggin' obligatory hosting the news, you know, like,
Right.
sorry, we couldn't like leave more than like 3 miles from our house. We like all the gyms were closed, only food was open. You could only train with one other person outdoors for an hour maximum. You both had to wear masks. Like it was just ridiculous. So
And how
I couldn't
strict
really
is it now?
train. It's pretty much all relaxed now. Basically, after Christmas, we had a massive kind of Omicron spike, and then
Yep.
all the borders opened again. Like, so our state-to-state borders were closed, so I couldn't even go home
Wow.
to see my family and stuff. Like from March until I went back in December. That was when I finally got to see my mom after nearly 10 months. So it was just insane. Like the Australian government really like lost their mind for a little bit there, but so that's why I came over to America.
Yeah, it's so crazy to see the differences because, yeah, where we are in Texas, you would almost think that COVID doesn't exist anymore.
Right, and that was kind of like Queensland, like the state that I'm from on the Gold Coast. They basically had no lockdowns, and they had a 7-day lockdown. That was it. Whereas Melbourne had all up nearly a year collectively of like lockdown. Sydney had, I think, maybe like 6 to 8 months. Like obviously those are more populated states, but yeah, and we're talking like everything locked down, friggin' only food open, only a supermarket open, maybe only Home Depot open. It was insane.
That's wild. So the goal is to stay more active this year, though, all things going as according.
Yes, if I can. I also had like a couple of health issues with my eye, so as long as like that is submitting, then after this fight, I'd love to have a quick turnaround and get back as soon as possible. Try to get a couple more in by the end of the year.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
Thanks.
And now I kind of cut out of a lot of losing connection earlier. I don't fully know what Cody asked you, but where did I think we kind of talked about earlier with karate and everything. You said karate, but like what is your full fight background? Have you always been striker first?
Yeah, I always had that karate background, and that sort of translated into MMA, but I guess I did end up starting in MMA after karate. So it wasn't like I kind of did boxing or Muay Thai or whatever, but during my MMA career, I ended up taking like a couple of boxing fights, and then when I like we're saying was lacking in opponents, and I've had a few pro boxing fights, and then when I was over in Thailand, when it was hard to get MMA fights again, I took up some Muay Thai fights just to keep up the experience and stay active and motivated. So yeah, so my background's definitely like MMA in a sense, but I predominantly sort of like gravitated towards striking.
Totally, that's awesome. Well, yeah, like I don't know how much else he asked you, but that's kind of what I wanted to do. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy catching us in during the drive, so that's awesome, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we definitely appreciated it for sure. I mean, this wouldn't be possible without people like you. So I'm definitely thankful for it.
No problem, guys. Appreciate it, and I appreciate you accommodating the time and stuff. I'm sorry it was a bit
Oh, absolutely. I look
backwards. I don't like to, when I like book something in, I don't like to be late, but today it was just like unavoidable. But yeah, I'm glad we got to fit it in, and seemed like a good chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. I'm excited to keep watching you in the future.
Absolutely. I look forward to watching you in Hawaii. And I think that pretty much wraps things up. So be safe on your drive. And like I said, we'll talk soon.
Sweet. Thank you guys so much. Have a great afternoon or evening wherever you guys are.
You,
Thank you.
you as well. Thank you.
Yeah.